Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Nieland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. Today we're going to be talking about the myth in the Skywalker saga. This is the main family that lives within Star Wars, and there's a lot of stuff that we can unpack here. But what is it behind Star Wars? Really, Star Wars endures because it speaks to what is the universal, the struggle between good and evil, the search for identity, for inner balance, and its characters reflect human fears, choices, and purpose. In this episode, we'll explore Luke Skywalker as a symbol of true heroism, Anakin Skywalker as a warning about power, of fear, and Rey and Ben Solo as the possibility of restoring balance. More than science fiction, these stories are mirrors into our own inner journey. And today we're gonna talk with Margie Ray. Margie Ray needs no introduction. She's been a guest on this podcast, and she really loves this story. So welcome, Margie. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thanks, Santiago. I'm excited to be here too, because these are fantastic topics to discuss. It has influence on all of our lives. We can see a lot of our lives in these stories,
Yeah,
So
definitely. And there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about, and we're going to start with the first segment, which this is where we have the story that it kicks off, even if it's in the middle of the story. But really, the story about Luke Skywalker is where we start this journey in Star Wars. So Luke Skywalker is the hero who doubts, yet moves forward. His path is not about power, but about choosing the light when fear tempts him. He learns through mentors, mistakes, and to trust in something greater, the force that is beyond his comprehension and that slowly he starts to understand. In this segment, we're going to show true heroism begins when we choose truth over fear. So, Margie, what can you tell us about the story of Luke Skywalker? I mean, we know that it's really grounded in the hero's journey, but what can you tell us about Luke Skywalker and your perspective in his story?
well, I think we see the evolution of the hero. At first, it's not, it's his desire to kind of become a storybook hero, go out and be a big pilot, and do stuff like that. But as he develops and he faces who he actually is, his true, and then of course when he goes to Yoda and he goes into the cave and he faces the actual fear of who, where he came from, who his father actually is. And then, but this is where you begin to see the kind of a one-dimensional hero that he thought he was going to be, wanted to be as just a, big famous pilot sort of deal. And now he realizes that he needs to become a whole human, a whole human being. He needs to relate to what is going on around him, the people around him, accept who he is, without accepting and rejecting the dark things that are around him. And he begins to realize that so much of it is choice, that we have choices within our lives to do it. And it also kind of shows that you have a choice, and you don't necessarily make always the right choice, but you can make, you may go off course a little bit, because he kind of left Yoda a little early, and then
Yeah.
he had to go back and learn more. And so you're seeing, the evolution of the true heroes, heroes' journeys. There's a lot of bumps along, along the way, decisions that are not, that could have been better, but they weren't perfect. But the whole thing is that it's not a perfection thing.
Hmm.
It's continually moving forward and making the best choices you can at that time, understanding that there is always forgiveness and redemption available to you. And so that's, that Campbell talks, of course, a lot about this in the hero's journey when he wrote about it, which is, of course, what Lucas did. It was
Yeah.
trying to embody in the movies. And but you can apply this so much. I mean, when I look back I'm 76 years old, and so I can look back at my life, and I can identify these kind of moments in my, in my own life as to when, I had, what you would call like, the tattooing moment where you're thinking you're going to do all this, fantastic. It's sort of like magical, thinking. And that's part of
Hmm.
youth. And but that does move you forward, okay? But then you have your moments where you begin to identify mentors in your life like Luke, he fortunately had Obi-Wan Kenobi to be his
Yeah.
mentor, which was fantastic. I had a mentor that came into my life in my 20s that was absolutely, spectacular and guided my spiritual journey in a very, very productive way for me. That if it had not been for my mentor Jim, I don't think I would have done the spiritual development at how it all unfolded within my own life. And then I also had those cave moments in my life where I could pick, I was shown maybe 2 different paths, and one was rather not unbeautiful, but had a certain allure to it.
Hmm.
The other one looked difficult, but, fortunately, I think because I had a good mentor and was becoming more spiritually grounded, I realized that sometimes the harder path and not the necessarily immediate gratification was a better choice for me personally. And you're making these choices for yourself. And so there you often have to make a choice for a harder path because of your own personal moral compass and integrity to stay intact. And and how you deal with other people. It's like sometimes that you think it would be easier to like kick somebody to the curb and then move on, but when you really look at it, you realize that first of all, that's not the kind thing to do. It's also not, it may be, feel at the moment an expeditious thing to do, but over the long haul, it's
Yeah.
it's not. And so you have a choice. You can choose to be an unbeautiful person, or you can choose that in the long term to become a more beautiful person. And so when you get to my age, Santiago, you'll look back and you'll identify these moments too, within your life. You probably already have to
Well,
a degree.
that's what I was gonna say. I'm
Yeah.
46, and actually, yes. I mean, there's a lot of different instances, and that's what I like about the hero's journey. I mean, there's certain archetypes, or there's a certain sequence of things, of events when you take that journey that you go through, and I like what you were saying, that it's not about being perfect. And you were referencing Luke and his vision, or his early vision of himself as this fighter pilot. He was even, fighter pilots then, they were part of the empire. So this was, kind of what his and his friend were trying to get to into the academy, and to become fighter pilots. But then, you start to have your vocation, or destiny starts to unravel in front of you. And this is really interesting with Luke, because that before that moment where everything just starts to the sequence starts to unravel, he had like a very clear path, and he was going to stay there. He was going to help his uncle for another season, but suddenly his family dies. He is brought with this, he's kind of thrown into this path with Obi-Wan and the droids, and suddenly we see him just immersed in this journey. And I like also what you said, that he's continually moving forward. He doubts, he's not sure, but he within each choice that he makes and each step that he takes, he becomes more confident, and he starts stepping into different forces. So I like that, at this, especially in the first movie, the episode 4, A New Hope, we see this very novel, very immature, or very naive hero where he begins, and then as we see him progress, and not only during his story, but when he became a mentor with Ray and Ben, he
Mhm.
becomes, he transforms. So it's really an evolution, and in the end, I think he the pinnacle of that is, when he basically helps his friends escape the darkness. I mean, that's something that we can all relate to. You were talking about mentors and the trials that we go through, so it's really interesting how we can relate. And this story, the hero's journey, not only the story about Luke Skywalker, but the hero's journey is present in our lives, right?
Oh yeah, I think, anybody can look in their own personal life, their own personal progression through their lives and identify, because I mean that's what Campbell was talking about. They're archetypes, and archetypes are what is applicable to the individual's life, and it's just another way of identifying things within your life. I mean, Maslow did it. There's a, bunch of psychologists that have done it, about how you identify the different phases and transitions that you go to. And it's not on a timeline, it's not like, I mean, some people get it early. Some people may come to certain points later, later in their lives. And but the nice thing, the neat thing about it, when you look at the hero's journey, you can identify those. And it's important that you do that, because it's sort of like saying, well, I used to be that way.
Yeah,
But now, because of my choices, I am now this way. And then if you identify that maybe I didn't make a good choice then, well, did I learn from that bad choice, or did I not? Maybe I need to go back and reevaluate that, and maybe I need to make a course correction here. Okay. And I've certainly, done that both career wise and also in my personal life interactions with other people. And but you can always make a course correction. There is redemption and there is forgiveness. And so that's important. Don't cut yourself off from that. Okay, don't think that you've made a decision that there is so bad you cannot come back from it, because well, first of all, we know the divine doesn't work that way. You know, there's
exactly,
it's
exactly.
always there, and within you, you can find the good, and so that's what's really, really important.
And I mean, a couple of things that we can take from this story with Luke Skywalker, and we discussed this in previous podcasts, is his ability to tap into the dark side. And I think this ability to tap into the dark side, use it, kind of take advantage of that, but not let it overcome him, overpower him, and really, infect him in a way that he just goes and becomes evil. And I think this is something that we as mortal beings, I mean, we're mortal and divine beings. We're living this divine mortal life within, but we're spiritual beings. We have a spirit, we have a soul, we have mind, but we have this material nature that in some cases does have this dark side, or this potential for I don't want to say evil, because it's not evil, but for this dark side, this, and we're going to talk about later on the balance. So one of the things that really fascinates me about Luke Skywalker is his ability to be, to tap into that dark side, understand it, maybe not destroy it, but use it in his favor. So that's something that I think, if we're able to understand ourselves and not shy away from that nature, but understand that, then we're able to tame it. And I like this analogy, now that we're talking, or not an analogy, but this archetype of the dragon. When you have the stories about the knights, you have the knight that goes and rescues the princess, and either he slays the dragon, or in many cases what they do is they subdue that dragon. So it's this magical and powerful and overpowering force that if you're able to subdue, then you can use in your favor. And then you see the knight riding, it's the mythical knight riding on top of the dragon, and the dragon being used, to serve his mission or his purpose. So that's interesting how we can also take that dark, or obscure nature, and as long as we can dominate it and we can take care of it, or not take hold of it, we can make use of it. So I like this, and I don't know, your take on this, Margie.
Well, I mean, I totally agree. You can, a lot of times it's as important to know what you don't want as to know what you do want, okay? And so if you identify, within like, I don't want to kill a dragon. I would like to, make it submit or change the dragon to where it can have a positive use within my life, okay? And
Hmm.
so it's where I mean, we can't deny that evil, sin, and iniquity, are viable, things in the world. But you do, you may make bad decisions because of bad information or just ignorance or whatever. Okay. You don't really trip over into the bed until you actually choose to do something
Hmm.
really, really awful. Okay. That's usually a choice. Okay. But when you realize what is not what you want it to be, and to then, move to a thing that and begin to see it more. And this is not trying to I'm not saying rationalize bad to make it good. I'm just saying you recognize the bad and you realize that within yourself, what is, where is the good choice as versus the unbeautiful choice to make.
Yeah,
And so if we didn't have this to compare it to, there would be no choice to make, and then
exactly.
we wouldn't have free will, really, I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
wouldn't have we wouldn't have free will to exist. And so the potential that there is, an evil or bad over on this side is what allows us to exercise our free will and develop our spiritual power to, make better and better decisions. And so, yeah, I mean, without it, without the big bad dragon over there, there would be nothing to rescue the princess from, so to speak.
exactly. And that's, I like that analogy and that archetype, because it is, you're rescuing that princess. That doesn't necessarily mean, a female just taken prisoner, but it's all that maybe that, I don't want to say feminine, but maybe that more, less, or more fragile. Let's use that word, more fragile. That is maybe taken or guarded by this dragon. But as soon as you understand the dragon, as soon as you start, using that dragon, subduing that dragon, then you free that maybe about things that are within inside of you. It's not necessarily a princess that you're freeing, but it's your nature that you're freeing. So as you progress into this and you subdue it, everything that happens. So it's really important that we understand these archetypes, and that we can understand what's really happening, and we can all identify ourselves in these stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what's so interesting about when you see these. I mean, Lucas has done it really well, okay, in this universe of the Star Wars. There's other, writers particularly that have done it well I mean, look at Tolkien, look
Yeah,
at C.S. Lewis, look at people, that have written in those where they're trying to draw distinctions between, good and evil, and when you read those books, you see that all the time, their characters are making these choices that move them, toward things getting better and better in their personal lives, and in some cases in their whole worlds. And so they didn't just write these books as a lark. They wrote these books and these movies and all these things because they know how powerful stories are to people and their lives. And it's one way to make people to well, not to make, but to allow people to inculcate
yeah,
these ideas in their own lives and move forward. So I think there's hundreds of examples of where people have done this. Those were just a few that came right off the top of
yeah.
my head.
On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.